It was a cold night when I finally stood in front of the house I once called home. My fingers trembled as I raised my hand and knocked on the front door. The wood was the same. The sound echoed just the way it used to, deep and hollow, but this time, it was not a call of welcome. It was a warning. Inside that house, my daughter was laughing. I heard her voice behind the walls. She had people over. Maybe friends. Maybe family. They didn't know the truth. They didn't know that just beneath their feet, I had once screamed until my throat bled. That I had scratched the walls of the basement with my bare hands until my nails tore off. That I had been sealed in darkness by my own blood for 10 long years. And now, I was back. I knocked again, harder. The laughter stopped. The door creaked open. She stood there, frozen. Her face went pale, and the wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. Her lips parted but no words came out. "Hello, Emily," I said softly. "Did you miss me?" Then everything went quiet. 10 years ago, I was just a grandmother who wanted to help. I moved in with Emily after her second child was born. She asked me to come, actually. She said she needed help with the kids, the house, the cooking, everything. Her husband had just walked out on her, and she was drowning. I didn't hesitate. I packed up my things and left my small apartment to move into her large home. At first, it was beautiful. I would wake up early and make breakfast. I played with little Charlie and held baby Rose when Emily needed to rest. I did the laundry, mowed the lawn, even painted the nursery when Emily changed her mind about the color. But soon, things changed. Emily started staying out late. Sometimes all night. She said she was working, but I could smell perfume that didn't belong to her on her clothes. I didn't ask. I just took care of the children like they were my own. They were my own. My grandchildren were the only joy I had left. But the more I helped, the more bitter Emily became. She said I was hovering, controlling, and old-fashioned. She said I made her feel like a child in her own house. Then came the day she screamed at me in front of the kids. "You're not their mother," she shouted. "You're just a tired old woman who needs to back off." My heart broke. I locked myself in the guest room and cried all night. But I didn't leave. I couldn't leave Charlie and Rose. One evening, Emily came home early. She was acting strange. Quiet. Cold. She said we needed to talk. I followed her into the kitchen. She had poured me a cup of tea. I should have known. Something was off. My body grew heavy. My head spun. The last thing I saw before blacking out was her face, blurry and calm. I woke up in darkness. The air was damp. Cold. I couldn't see my hands. The floor was hard and smelled of mold. I screamed. I banged on the walls. I cried. But nobody came. She had sealed the basement door from the outside. There was no light. No food. No sound, except the rats that scratched in the corners. Days passed. Then weeks. I ate crumbs she dropped down the laundry chute. Stale bread. Rotten apples. Water from a rusted pipe that dripped slowly. I thought I would die there. I tried to keep track of time by scratching lines on the wall. But after a while, I lost count. Every day was the same, dark, cold, and silent. Until one day, I heard a child's voice. A tiny, sweet voice. "Grandma?" It was Charlie. His voice had changed. He was older now. "Grandma, are you in there?" My heart burst. I tried to speak, but my throat was dry. I banged the wall. I tapped the pipes. And I heard him say, "I knew you were real." He left something near the vent. A sandwich. And a note. It said, "I don't believe what Mom says. I know you're not crazy. I'm going to help you." I cried for the first time in years. From that day, he would leave notes. Food. Even books, torn pages stuffed through the cracks. He saved me. But he was only a child. Then one night, I heard her voice. Emily. If you ever tell anyone she's down there, I'll say you're lying. And no one will believe you. Just like they didn't believe me when I was a girl. Her voice was like ice. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break through the floor and pull her down with me. She left. The door slammed. Charlie never came again. That was the worst part. The silence that followed. Years passed. My legs grew weak. My hair fell out. My skin turned pale like paper. I thought of ending it many times, but a fire burned inside me. I wasn't going to die in that place. Then, something happened. A storm. Lightning struck the old oak in the backyard. Its roots tore into the ground, cracking the foundation. The basement wall split open. A way out. I crawled through mud and concrete. I dragged myself through the gap like a wounded animal. And I rose from the earth, like something born again. I walked for days. People stared at me. I looked like a ghost. I was one. But I found help. A kind woman. A stranger. She gave me food. A bath. A phone. And now, 10 years later, I was back. I had returned to the house that swallowed me. And the woman who once called me mom had just opened the door. But she didn't know. She had just opened the door to her nightmare. She didn't say a word. Just stood there, frozen, as if seeing a ghost. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her hands shook like leaves in the wind. I stood in front of her, dirty, old, thin, with sunken eyes and gray hair like wild straw, but I stood tall. I was alive. 10 years locked away in that basement, and she had the nerve to look afraid. Are you going to invite me in? I asked, calmly, as if I had just returned from a vacation. She didn't answer. She slowly stepped aside, and I walked past her into the same house where she buried me alive. The smell hit me first. Bleach. Candles. Expensive air fresheners. But underneath it all, I still smelled the old wood, the memory of my blood, my tears, and the silence that used to eat me alive. The furniture had changed. New floors. A big TV. Fancy kitchen. And right there, hanging on the wall, a family photo. Emily, smiling. Her new husband beside her. Charlie and Rose, all grown now. I stared at it. You replaced me, I said softly. She finally spoke. You weren't supposed to, I mean. I thought you were. Dead? I turned to her. You thought you'd starve me, bury me, and be done with me? I had no choice, she whispered, voice breaking. No choice? I said, my voice rising. You drugged me. You locked me. You forgot me. And now you say you had no choice? I had a breakdown, she said quickly. You were always watching me, judging me, trying to control my life. I needed space. You wouldn't leave. I laughed bitterly. So your solution was to bury your own mother in the dark? She looked away. It wasn't supposed to be that long. That long? I shouted. Do you know what it's like to listen to rats chew on your shoes while your stomach eats itself? To pray for a voice, any voice, through the vent? To wonder if your grandchildren would ever know the truth? Tears ran down her face now, but they didn't move me. She'd cried before, many times, even while hurting me. You're scaring the kids, she said suddenly, looking toward the hallway. And that's when I saw him. Charlie. He was taller now, almost a man. But his eyes, they were still the same. Big. Kind. Full of questions. Grandma, he said, his voice unsure. I smiled weakly. Yes, my darling. It's me. He stepped forward, then stopped. I knew it, he whispered. I knew you were real. I remember your voice. Your notes. They told me I was dreaming. That I made you up. You didn't, I said. You saved me. He ran into my arms, and I held him, trembling. My bones hurt. My knees wanted to buckle. But I held him tight like I used to when he was a baby. Emily watched, red-eyed. Charlie, go to your room. No, he snapped. You lied to me. You said she died in her sleep. But I remember. I heard her voice through the vents. Charlie, please. You locked her in the basement, he shouted. You're a monster. Emily broke down, falling to her knees, sobbing into her hands. Rose peeked from the staircase, confused and scared. I knelt and looked at her. Do you know who I am, sweetheart? She shook her head. I'm your grandma, I said, with a gentle smile. And I've missed you so, so much. She looked to Emily, then back at me. She didn't move. I don't understand, she said. I didn't blame her. She was just a child when it happened. She had no way of knowing the truth. But she would now. Charlie took my hand. Come upstairs, Grandma. You need rest. I'll get you something to eat. No, Emily said, rising to her feet. You're not staying here. I have nowhere else to go, I said. And this is still my home. You may have locked me away, but you didn't erase me. Her face turned hard. Cold again. I'll call the police, she warned. Go ahead, I said, slowly walking to the couch. Tell them how you drugged your mother and locked her in the basement. Tell them how you told your kids I was dead while feeding me scraps like a dog. Go on, call them. She stood still. Her hand shook as she reached for her phone, but she didn't dial. She knew she couldn't. You think they'll believe you? She hissed. You look like a crazy old woman who just wandered in off the street. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a folded paper. It was stained and old, but it was Charlie's note. The one he slipped through the vent years ago. It read, I don't believe what Mom says. I know you're not crazy. I'm going to help you. Charlie gasped. You still have it. I kept every word, I said, turning to Emily. Want to tell the police this was part of my hallucination too? She looked down, defeated. Charlie sat beside me and held my hand. Don't worry, Grandma, he said. You're safe now. I wanted to believe that. I truly did. But something deep inside me said this nightmare wasn't over. That night, after everyone went to bed, I sat in the dark living room. The shadows felt like old friends. The clock ticked slowly. I heard footsteps upstairs, then silence. Then I heard something else. A creak. The basement door was opening. I rose from the chair, my heart pounding. And just as I stepped into the hallway, a hand grabbed me from behind and pulled me into the darkness. The hand wrapped around my mouth before I could scream. I was dragged backwards, my heels scraping against the floor. The hallway lights flickered as I kicked and struggled, my body too weak from years in the dark. Whoever it was knew what they were doing, strong, silent, deliberate. Then suddenly, we stopped. The hand let go. I stumbled forward and spun around, gasping. It was Emily. She stood there, chest heaving, eyes wild. Her face was a twisted mix of rage and desperation. Her hair was messy, her hands clenched into fists. What are you doing? I hissed. Are you out of your mind? You shouldn't have come back, she said through gritted teeth. You were supposed to be gone. Dead. Buried in the past. You buried me alive, Emily, I snapped. And now I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. She stepped closer, her voice sharp and cold. You think you can just walk back into this house and take over like before? Like nothing happened? I never wanted to take over your life. I only came to help. You asked me to. I needed space, she yelled. I needed to breathe without you watching every move I made, judging me. You were always in the way, always right, always perfect. I stared at her, stunned. So you locked me in a basement? Because I loved you too much? She didn't answer. Her silence screamed louder than her words ever could. You need help, I whispered. Real help. She laughed. It was dry. Empty. You think you can fix this now? After all these years? They already think I'm crazy. If people find out the truth, I'll lose everything. My job. My kids. My life. You should lose everything, I said. You tried to destroy mine. Her face twisted with rage. You ruined my childhood. You always made me feel small. Like I was never enough. I only ever tried to protect you, Emily, I said softly. But you needed love, not control. I see that now. I failed you. But nothing I did, nothing, justifies what you did to me. She looked down, her jaw trembling. And for a moment, I saw the little girl she used to be. The one who used to cry when her ice cream fell. The one who curled up in my arms during thunderstorms. The one who called me mommy when she had nightmares. But that little girl was long gone. Now, she was a woman with secrets, and I was the one who held the key to destroy her lies. Suddenly, she stepped aside, pointing down the hallway. Go, she said bitterly. Leave this house. Leave us. Don't come back. I won't leave Charlie and Rose, I said, standing firm. If you stay, she said, voice trembling, I'll make your life hell again. I'll tell them you broke in. That you were violent. That you're sick. They'll believe me. They always do. I stared her down. You can lie to the world, Emily. But you can't lie to yourself. You know what you did. And deep down, they do too. She turned away, shaking, tears falling silently. I walked back down the hall, not taking my eyes off her until I reached the staircase. I climbed up, step by slow step, until I reached Charlie's room. He was sitting up in bed, his eyes red. Are you okay? He whispered. I'm fine, love, I said, touching his cheek. But I need to tell you something. The truth. He nodded, and I sat beside him. I told him everything. From the night I was drugged, to the years in the dark, to the day I escaped through the broken wall. I told him about the letters he sent me, how they kept me alive. How his voice was the only thing that reminded me I was human. He cried. I knew something was wrong, he whispered. I always felt it. But she made me think I was crazy. You weren't, I said, holding his hand. You were brave. The next morning, the air in the house was heavy. Emily didn't come out of her room. Rose sat quietly at the table, watching me as I cooked breakfast. You smell like someone I used to dream about, she said softly. My heart ached. Maybe that someone was me. She smiled. Later that day, there was a knock at the door. I opened it slowly, and saw 2 police officers. Ma'am, one of them said, we received a report of an elderly woman trespassing in this home. May we come in? My breath caught. Emily had done it. She was trying to erase me again, only this time, in the light of day. I looked behind me. Charlie stood at the top of the stairs, fists clenched. Rose peeked from the hallway. Then I stepped aside and said calmly, yes, officers. Please come in. I have a story to tell you. The taller officer glanced at his partner, then nodded. We'll need to see some identification. I walked to my bag on the couch, pulled out my old ID, faded but still valid. Eleanor Thompson, I said. Born March 5, 1951. This is my daughter's house. I helped raise her children here. 10 years ago, I disappeared. She told everyone I died. The officers frowned. Do you have any proof of that claim? I nodded slowly, pulling out the note again, the one from Charlie. And then Charlie walked forward. It's true, he said boldly. She's my grandma. My mom locked her in the basement. I used to sneak her food. I heard her crying. The room fell silent. Emily appeared at the top of the stairs, pale and shaking. The officers turned to her. Ma'am, we're going to need you to come with us for questioning. Her eyes darted around, then landed on me. Pure hate. But she didn't fight. She just nodded and went to get her coat. As the door closed behind her, I held my grandchildren close. I didn't feel like celebrating. I didn't feel like I'd won. Because even though justice was finally starting to arrive, nothing could ever return those 10 lost years. That night, as I sat by the window watching the rain fall, Charlie came and sat beside me. Are you going to stay? He asked. I looked at him and smiled. I will, I said. But first, I need to go back down there. One last time. His eyes widened. Why? Because there's something I left in that basement, I whispered. I stood up, walked to the old wooden door, and opened it slowly. The air that rose up was heavy and cold. And at the bottom of the stairs, something moved. The basement door groaned as it opened, and a gust of cold, stale air rose to greet me like an old, unwanted friend. I stood at the top of the stairs, staring down into the darkness that had once been my prison. Charlie grabbed my hand. Grandma, don't go down there. Please. I squeezed his hand gently. I have to. Just for a moment. He didn't let go. His eyes pleaded with me, but I gave him a soft nod, the kind of look grandmothers give when they need to do something alone. I stepped onto the first creaky stair. Then the second. With each step, the memories returned like thunder. My cries echoing into silence. The cold cement against my back. The rats. The hunger. The fear. The sound of her voice above me, pretending I no longer existed. I reached the bottom and flicked on the old switch. It buzzed, then flickered weakly to life. The light bulb barely lit the room. But it was enough. The walls were still scarred with my fingernail scratches. The pipe I drank from still dripped steadily into a rusted bowl I had once used to catch the water. In the corner, the torn blanket Charlie once pushed through the vent lay folded and untouched, like a forgotten prayer. I knelt down and reached behind the broken brick, where I had hidden it. A small, battered tin box. Inside was my journal. Pages yellowed and stained, filled with every thought, every tear, every moment I spent in this hell. I had written by the tiny light that sometimes seeped in from the floor above, using broken pencil bits and old receipts I had found in the storage junk. This journal held everything. Every lie. Every truth. Every word she never let me say. As I opened the first page, a tear rolled down my cheek. If anyone finds this, please know. I didn't leave my grandchildren. I was taken. Locked away. Forgotten by the one I gave birth to. I hugged the book to my chest. Then I turned to leave. But I wasn't alone. A shadow moved near the staircase. Slow. Quiet. Then a voice. You should have stayed gone. Emily. I spun around, heart pounding. She stood at the base of the stairs, her face pale and tight, eyes burning with fury. She wasn't supposed to be here. The police had taken her. She wasn't supposed to come back. I made bail, she said, as if reading my thoughts. And guess what, Mother? They don't believe you. Not really. They think you're confused. That maybe you wandered off for years and just think I did all those things. My hands trembled, but I stood my ground. They will believe me, I said. I have my journal. Charlie's note. And Charlie himself. She laughed, bitter and sharp. He's a teenager. They'll say I was protecting him from a dangerous woman with dementia. I've already started planting the seeds. I'll tell them you snuck into the house. That you're unstable. They'll believe me. You locked me in this basement, Emily, I hissed. What kind of mother does that? Her expression changed, twisted into something darker. I did it because you wouldn't let me live, she growled. You smothered me. You took over my house, my children, my life. You always thought you knew better. Always corrected me. Always made me feel like I wasn't enough. I stepped back, holding the journal tight. You were enough, Emily, I said. You were my daughter. My only one. And I gave up everything for you. But you didn't need to hurt me to find your freedom. Tears welled in her eyes, but her anger burned hotter. Freedom, she said. You talk about freedom? You stole mine when I was still a girl. I frowned. What are you talking about? She stepped closer, her voice breaking. You controlled everything. You told me who to date, where to go, what to wear. You made me feel like a puppet. And when I finally broke free, when I finally needed space, you wouldn't let go. So I took it. I never meant to control you, I said softly. I was scared. You were making dangerous choices. I didn't want you to ruin your life. Well, you ruined mine, she screamed. You turned me into a liar. A criminal. A woman who locked her own mother away. We both stood there, breathing heavy. Then she reached into her coat and pulled out a lighter. My eyes widened. What are you doing? I asked, stepping back. I'm ending it, she said. Once and for all. She threw the lighter to the ground. It landed on the old, dry blanket. Flames erupted instantly. No. I screamed, lunging for the fire, but she blocked my path. You want to live in the past, Mother? Then stay here with it. The fire spread fast, licking up the walls and across the floor. The mold and dust fueled it like dry wood. Smoke filled the room, thick and choking. I turned and ran, coughing, eyes burning. I climbed the stairs, 2 at a time, trying to escape. But just as I reached the top, the door slammed shut. Locked. Again. Just like before. Emily! I screamed, banging on the door. Let me out. But there was only silence. Smoke rose fast behind me. The flames were climbing now. I had maybe minutes, maybe less. I dropped to my knees, pounding the door with everything I had left. Emily! And just as I felt the smoke reach my lungs. Bang! The door burst open. Charlie stood there with a hammer in his hands, sweat pouring down his face. Grandma, he shouted. Come on. I reached for him, falling into his arms. He pulled me out, coughing, helping me to my feet. Downstairs, the fire roared. Behind us, Emily was gone. We stumbled outside, collapsing on the front lawn as the smoke poured out of the windows. Neighbors gathered. Sirens screamed in the distance. Charlie held me as I gasped for air. She tried to burn me alive, I whispered. Again. He looked at me, his eyes fierce. Not this time. But even as the fire trucks arrived, and neighbors came rushing with blankets and water, my heart was heavy. Emily had vanished into the smoke. And something told me. She wasn't finished yet. The fire had scorched the entire basement. By the time the firefighters put it out, the damage was done. The walls were blackened, the old beams charred to ash. Everything I had known down there, my pain, my hiding place, the journal I had saved for a decade, was gone. The flames had swallowed it all. All that remained were my words, my truth, and Charlie. They never found Emily that night. She had vanished before the fire trucks came, into the woods behind the house, maybe, or onto some dark road far away. But in the days that followed, the police issued a warrant. News spread fast. The headline on the local station read, Daughter accused of locking mother in basement for 10 years, then attempted to burn her alive. The community was shocked. Neighbors whispered about the kind, quiet woman who walked her grandkids to school. They couldn't believe it. But some admitted they'd always wondered why I suddenly disappeared. She said you had cancer, one of the neighbors told me. Said you passed away in your sleep. I shook my head. She buried me without digging a grave. I stayed with a kind social worker named Mrs. Dalton while the investigation continued. She gave me a room, warm food, and helped me recover slowly. My body still ached, my muscles had wasted away over the years. But every day, I walked a little more. I ate a little more. I smiled, just a little. Charlie visited every day after school. He brought me tea, his sketchbooks, and even silly jokes he found online. Rose came with him sometimes. She was quieter, more unsure. But slowly, she began to hug me. One afternoon, Charlie brought a small wrapped box. "What's this?" I asked. He grinned. "Open it." Inside was a new journal. Brown leather. Blank pages. "I thought you could start again," he said softly. I hugged him so tightly, tears rolling down my cheeks. "You saved me, Charlie. You truly saved me." And then, one rainy morning, the call came. They had found her. Emily was living 2 towns over under a fake name, staying in a shelter, pretending to be a woman who had escaped her abusive mother. She had changed her hair, even her voice. But someone recognized her from the news. She was arrested without a fight. At the trial, I had to sit in the courtroom and face her. She looked different. Tired. Broken. But not sorry. She didn't speak as the court listed the charges: unlawful imprisonment, attempted murder, child endangerment, obstruction of justice. She sat there like a ghost. When I was called to testify, the entire courtroom went silent. I stood, legs shaking, hands cold, and looked her in the eyes. "My name is Eleanor Thompson," I said. "And for 10 years, I was locked in a basement by my daughter, the woman sitting right there. She took away my freedom, my family, and nearly my life. But she did not take my soul." I told them everything. About the tea she drugged. The years of darkness. The rats. The fire. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just told the truth. When I stepped down, Charlie ran up and hugged me. The judge smiled at me with kindness I hadn't seen in years. Emily was sentenced to 25 years in prison. No parole for at least 10. She stared straight ahead when the sentence was read. No tears. No apologies. Just silence. After the trial, as I walked out of the courtroom, a young woman approached me. She was a journalist. "Mrs. Thompson, can I ask you something?" she said gently. "What would you say to someone who still loves the person who hurt them?" I paused, then said, "You can love someone and still protect yourself from them. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. And it doesn't mean allowing them to hurt you again. Sometimes love means walking away. And sometimes, it means surviving." She nodded and walked away. Months passed. The old house was sold. I didn't go back. I moved into a small home near the park, where the sun came through the windows every morning. Rose and Charlie came every weekend. We baked cookies. We played board games. Sometimes, we just sat in silence, holding hands. And every night, I wrote in my new journal. One day, I wrote this. She buried me once. But I rose. Not because I was strong, but because I was loved. I survived for the ones who believed. And I will never be buried again. On the anniversary of the fire, Charlie and I walked to a quiet spot by the lake. He handed me a match and a letter. "What's this?" I asked. "A goodbye," he said. It was a letter he had written to his mother. He placed it in a tin can, and I lit the match. The flames danced, gentle and orange, and the letter turned to ash. We watched it float away on the wind. That night, I sat by my window, looking at the stars. For the first time in years, I felt peace. No more locks. No more lies. Just me, the night sky, and freedom. The nightmare was over. And I had survived it.